Hey everyone, welcome back to 1 Cent Sports Cards YouTube channel. Today I am doing a video about a simple tool that may help you get the perfect grade that you are looking for when sending your cards into a grading company. Does it work? Is it a gimmick? Well, let's find out as we grade the Grademaster Card Centering Tool. Okay, so here is the Grademaster Card Centering Tool, which is a product of BAK Products LLC. You can buy these for about 15 bucks on eBay, and here's what comes inside it. Basically, what they say on their eBay page is that this will help you determine whether you should send a card in for grading or not. And here's what comes inside. Now, keep in mind, it goes for 15 bucks. One, it comes with directions. Everything is laminated, pretty much done with a lamination machine, which you can buy pretty cheap on Amazon. It comes with the actual centering tool itself, which I think will work better if I show you kind of, it's got a bunch of lines on it. What we'll do, just to kind of show you what the lines look like. So you can see, you center up a card on here. There's a bunch of lines, and we're going to test this all out. And then then it comes with kind of a guide for what the lines mean, and if you should send it in and how centered the card actually is. Now, when you send cards in, anything 60-40 left or right, or in between 50-50 and 60-40, they're not going to knock you on that. So it's a pretty well-centered card. But we're going to test out 4 cards that I am considering sending in for grading. As most of you know that follow my channel, I'm not a big fan of grading. I feel like you should own the card, not the grade. But some cards do deserve to be graded. So we're going to test the Grademaster Card Centering Tool on 4 different cards. The first, a Luis Robert 2020 Topps Chrome Sepia Parallel. The second, a 2020 Yadier Molina Patch Auto numbered 5 of 5. I don't know if I can get that on there. We'll get that on there in just a second. Hold on. Let's do that. There we go. So we got the 5 of 5 auto. This is a Topps Reverence autograph patch card from Topps Series 2. Just a really tough pull there. Then we have a Fernando Tatis Topps Gallery 2019 Impressionists auto. This is numbered 6 out of 10. And then I have an Andrew Vaughn Atomic Refractor Bowman First from 2019 Bowman Draft. So we'll start with this card, and basically here's the directions on this thing without going into what all this says. Basically what you do is you take the lines on the card, which I think it'll be easier if I show it to you this way. So you line up the card exactly as well and as close as you can, and then you want to see where the centering of the card happens. So you've got numbers 10, 8, 9, kind of hard to see on here, but you've got numbers basically 1 through 10, which is going to tell you how well it is centered. And then we'll show you once we do the percentages on this, on how that works. So we'll see if this is just a gimmick and a great way to get 15 bucks, because to produce something like this, all you need is laminating tools and some paper, and you might not even need to cut it straight if you wanted to do that. Probably the hardest thing would be the actual centering tool itself, which is printed on. But all in all, this costs almost nothing to produce, but it might be a tool that will help you decide if you want to send this in, send your cards in for grading. So the Andrew Vaughn, I think I have it centered up here pretty well. And as you can see, it puts a bunch of numbers on here. Now, Bowman 2019 does not have a defined 4 borders, so the borders don't go all the way around. But you can normally tell, and I got to keep this nice and centered. So what I've learned after playing with this a little bit is if you hold it in the center, it kind of works a little bit better. So our border is going to be right along here. And as you can see, maybe there's a number 3 here. I think that one thing I would do to improve this is make this a red, not a black. Make it a color that you don't normally see on a card anyway. Make it maybe yellow, orange, make all the lines different, make them very neon. They didn't do that on this. But as you can see, the line as it lines up on here is basically on our border, we are sitting on a 3 to the left, and on the right, it's much harder to tell, but we're basically coming in right between like a 3 and a 4. Now, when we go to the back, it's going to be a little bit easier to tell because we do have 4 borders that we can line this right up on. So when you're grading cards, you definitely want to be sure to check all of your borders, front and back. And here's where we're going to land on the back. Now, you got to do the top and the bottom. So on top, we do line up right on a 3. And on the bottom, make sure we got it still straight on the bottom. We are lining up right kind of between the 3 and the 2, and to left and right, we are lining up right on that 3. By the way, 3 is like a good line to line up on. So left to right, we're at 3 and 3. Top to bottom, we are at, it's like 3.5. And then down here, we're basically lining up at the 2. So then what you do is you come over to the scale. And as you can see, 3 and 3 is a 50-50 card. So that's a perfectly centered card. 3-2 is going to take you at 60-40. Now, if you line up on like a 57-43, that isn't bad at all. So that's like a 4-3. So on the top to bottom on the Andrew Vaughn, we were kind of in that 4-3 area. What you don't want to see is like a 4-2, where all of a sudden you're at a 67-33. Anything that is bold on here keeps you within the range of a well-centered card. So with the Andrew Vaughn, a pretty well-centered card on the top, basically 3 and 3. On the top to bottom, which we didn't really check on the front, we are sitting at, let me get this lined up here again. So from top to bottom, when we line this card up, we sit right at, on the bottom, you are sitting at a 3. On the top, you were sitting just under the 4 line, so you're kind of at like a 3.5. So very well-centered card. So this card, very well-centered card, nice atomic refractor, Andrew Vaughn, 3rd pick overall in the 2019 draft. Definitely a card, good prospect to get graded. Would probably, with the centering, you're going to be just fine. But there's a lot more to take into consideration. So we're going to measure out some of these cards here real fast. The next is going to be the Fernando Tatis Auto. Now, generally, if you were really going to do this, you would want to take this out of the one touch, because this would definitely throw you off a little bit. You want to get the card as close to the card measuring tool as possible. So with the Fernando Tatis Auto, let's get this lined up on here. And what you'll see is that the Tatis, and I'll try and get it straight dead on for you. The Tatis, we have 4 borders. We're lining up right on the 3 on the top. On the bottom, a little bit tougher because we can't see, but you're going to line up right below that impressionist, which would be right on this solid line down here, which is a 3. And then left to right, we are 3 and we are 3. So if we go to the back, we can do the same thing. You're going to want to measure top to bottom, left to right. And what you'll find here, see if you hold it in the middle, it seems to be a little bit easier. What we're going to find is I line up right on the 3 here. I'm lining up right on the 3, maybe just a little bit in there. But overall, 3 on the bottom, or 3 on the top. I've got another 3 on the bottom. So this card definitely centered all day long. Now on the Yadier Molina, this is where it gets interesting a little bit. One, I'm going to go back to the coloring on the centering tool itself and say this is where black doesn't really do me a lot of good. Now this is a gray card, and here's where we land on this. It is a perfectly centered card. I have measured this thing. We've got the 4 defined borders. They all land right on the 3. And the same is going to happen here on the back. But it took me forever to figure this out because it's really hard to read the lines. But when you do all the measuring on this, what you'll find is it does measure out right on those 3 lines, which is exactly what you want. So this card measures perfectly. Now, the Luis Robert. Interesting card. A lot of people, obviously with Topps Chrome being a new release, a lot of people are going to be looking to get these cards graded. Luis Robert, kind of the big pull out of that set. So here's where I have an issue with this tool. Now, I do think that where our line would line up here is at the edge of the top of the name. I think that's where our border is. And then at the very bottom of the logo for the team. So that does line right up at the 3, and this line's right up at the 3 over here. However, when we line it up to on the right, I'm assuming you would line it up right to the rookie card, which comes in at a 3, and then you would probably want to line it up right to the Topps Chrome logo, which, as you can see, we kind of come in right at the top of the Topps Chrome logo, and then probably right here at the bottom of the RC emblem. So we're perfectly centered with 3s if we use that as a guide. But is that the guide? I don't know. They don't tell you. It's not like Topps is going to come out and say this is what the centering is. But then when we look at the back, and by the way, you can do this vertically or horizontally, whatever, however you want to do it. Here's what's interesting. So what we'll find on this is that all of a sudden I have a number showing up on the 4, and down here where I can't really tell what my border is, but assuming that it is the bottom of the Topps logo or the bottom of the small like writing down here, I'm coming in at a 2. So this is a 4-2 top to bottom on the back. It is not a 3-3, which is what you're looking for. So that, when we come on here, is a 67-33. And to be fair, I don't think you can tell just by looking. Maybe you can tell it's a little bit low by looking up at the Chrome, but this card is not perfectly centered front to back. So is this a card you should send in for grading? It's a beautiful looking card. It does not have a lot of any rough edges or anything like that, but this is not a perfectly centered card. So this might save you the $13 or so, or up to $20, I guess, because it's a newer card, depending on how you submit your cards. But this would have saved you sending in the Luis Robert if you're looking for a 10. Would it maybe get a 9? Very possibly. If that's a score that you're comfortable with, fine. However, this would save you. So a little bit of value there. Now, here's my, so for centering, I do think it does a very good job. My advice would be to take the black that they have printed here, which is a very cheap way to print this, and actually say, you know what I would do? I would make these bright red, just some bright colors that don't often end up on cards. And the other thing I would do, even if it costs you a little bit more, is actually make it a little bit more sturdy than something like this, where you could actually drop the card right in and it kind of centers, so the card would come right in on top, and maybe even almost like a slab in it of itself, where the card would sit perfectly in there, so you don't have to, so it keeps it centered for you versus you struggling with trying to line stuff up like this. Would that cost more? Yes. Would it be more effective? Yes. So I think that would be my advice, because it's really hard to read. and it's really hard to keep it centered and read it at the same time. So that would be my advice on how to improve a product like this. But does it work overall? And is it going to guarantee you a 9 or a 10? It will guarantee you on centering. I do agree with that. However, there's so much more that goes into grading a card. Like, for example, let me show you on the Fernando Tatis. Beautiful card here. We've already tested it for centering. The centering is perfect, but there is so much more to look at in a card. And that's why you always want to have, even if it's your kids like mine is, you probably want to have even a better one than this. But if you have a magnifying glass, let me see if I can get this on camera for you. I don't know if this is going to pick this up very well. However, if you can see that right there, there is right on that back corner just a little bit, just a tiny little bit. And that may cost you a 10 right there. Do I think this card would totally grade out as a 9? Yes. But there is, when you look at this card real close, a tiny, tiny, tiny little dent right there. And I don't know if it's going to show. I will try and get it on the camera as much as I can. But a little tiny crease right at the bottom there. I mean, microscopic, but that is the stuff they're going to be looking at. They're also going to be looking at the surface of the card. So if I come over here to the Luis Robert, which I've already decided you will probably, if you're looking for a 10, you probably wouldn't want to grade it. But if you look at the Luis Robert and take it out, they're going to be looking at the surface of a card. Now, this card, pretty clean surface. But again, if I put it underneath a microscope, and I'll try and get it for you on screen here. I like using this smaller one because I feel like I can get it better. But there is a tiny dimple, and I don't think you can see it on there. I think we're actually picking it up. That little almost rainbow piece is a tiny little dimple that is being picked up on the card itself. It's a tiny dimple. Real easy to see. So there's a little tiny surface scratch on here. And if you look even closer, I might even be able to get this on a reflection somehow. But there is a small printing line that kind of runs down the front of the card. And that is how rigorous people are with the grading. So this card might not even grade at a 9. It might grade at an 8. It has perfect edges. Its centering is close, but it is not close enough. It has a small surface scratch and a little dimple that's kind of right there on the card. Now, of all the cards, as I looked at this, did this help me know about centering? I keep doing it like this. Does the Grademaster Card Centering Tool help me with centering? Yes, it does. But that still does not preclude me from having to check the card for all sorts of different imperfections. Now, this card, the 5 of 5 Yadier Molina, measures perfectly centering tool. So thank you for the centering tool on that. I have looked at this card over and over. I have put the microscope on it. All of the foil that is on the card is good. The patch is good. It is a perfect auto from Yadier Molina. It is perfectly centered. I have looked at the edges of the card over and over and over again, and I can tell you that this is a card that I would probably send in and expect to get a 9 out of. It's a beautiful, beautiful card. I don't want to take it out of its sleeve. However, this card overall probably graded a 9, maybe a 10. When I consider sending stuff in for grading, I want to know that I can make money on it, even on a 9. Because the only reason I'm going to send stuff in for grading is because I want to resell it. Or if it's a PC and I just want it slabbed. But by the way, you can pay for it to be slabbed without having it graded, and that costs you a lot less. So the other card I might consider sending in for grading is the Andrew Vaughn. The Andrew Vaughn, a very clean card. And overall, just another card that kind of measures out perfectly, has really nice edges to it. So the Yadier Molina, I think, would get a 9, but the Luis Robert, I would probably stay at home and not grade it, thank you to the card centering tool. The Fernando Tatis, I believe, would be a 9, and the Andrew Vaughn, I believe, would be either a 9 or a 10. So, my final take on the Grademaster Card Centering Tool. If you need help and really want to know if your card is centered, not a bad tool. I think they could make improvements on it for $15, maybe a little bit cheap. I almost feel like you could just photocopy this and send this out to Patreon members with a white background, and you could do it all by yourself just like that. But all in all, not a bad tool for 15 bucks if you really want to know if your card's centered. But just keep in mind, if you were to buy something like this, you also need to check it for all those other things. Invest in a couple bucks in a magnifying glass, probably one that's better than this. This is just the one I use, but I don't grade cards all the time. But if you used one that even like diamond cutters and stuff like that, where you can really look at imperfections closely, that probably would not be a bad investment if you were doing a lot of card grading. However, for $15 for centering, I do think that it does its job. I think there's room for improvement on the product, but overall, kind of a fun product if for nothing else to see when how some cards are really, really off-centered, and how some cards can be perfect. And I do think it would help you in regards to figuring out one part of the equation in regards to card grading. So you guys, if you like this video, throw over to first, hit that like button. If you like the Grademaster, go ahead and look it up on eBay. I'm not going to advertise for free for them, but you can look them up. You'll find them on eBay. And if you like this sort of thing, like card flipping advice, definitely subscribe to the channel. We do all sorts of videos like this all the time. We do breaks. We do set reviews, so a great time to subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell as well so you can be notified when my latest videos go up. And until the next time, guys, I hope you're having good luck on your personal pack pulls. I hope you're being good to your family, to your friends, and to your neighbors. And until next time, take care.